In our last video, we sat down with PSC's Chairman of the Board, Ron Sims, for a conversation and a tour of his garage, which holds his massive collection of oil industry memorabilia.
Continue the tour here, or go back and check out part 1 now. The link's in the description.
If you're in the oil business, automobiles and racing go hand in hand. And at one time, we used it as an advertising gimmick. We used to have a big tent we'd put up with Valvoline and take a lot of customers up there for the time trials and things like that. Back in about 72, before NASCAR got really big, USAC, which was Indianapolis Racing,
Right.
they started racing cars, and we got Richard Petty's old car and ran it in the Pure Waiter 500. Those are all pictures of the pit area with Richard Petty and Bobby Allison and some of the guys and me with our pit crew. These other signs, title, that was Petroleum Service Company's first brand.
That was about 86 years ago. We've come a long way since then, but we still operate out of the same location in the historic Wilkesburg, PA.
While a good chunk of the state was dedicated to oil drilling, our hometown was in the heart of coal country, with much of the country's anthracite coming from northeastern Pennsylvania.
Ron explained to us that our introduction to the area as an oil company caused a bit of a stir.
In our particular area, everything was cool until probably the 50s, and people started to put oil in their houses. And actually, in the beginning, they used to deliver oil after it got dark so that the neighbors wouldn't get all upset and they were taking jobs away.
Get out of here.
Competing, a lot of these little towns were owned by the coal companies, no doubt.
Well, look at a town like Wilkesburg. There were 80-some thousand people living in it back in those days. And when the Depression came, it didn't affect this area because everybody needed coal. So this was a hot area.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Petroleum Service Company managed to survive the Depression and continued its growth over the next few decades. In the early 70s, however, the company and its hometown came face to face with its greatest challenge yet, Hurricane Agnes and the flood of 1972.
Rainfall peaked at nearly 20 inches in Pennsylvania, and flooding rose up to 30 feet. 68,000 homes and 3,000 businesses were destroyed, costing the state nearly $2.3 billion.
The flood changed a lot of things. We were actually repairing our own motors to get the pumps back working again. We used ovens. In any employee that had a house with an oven, they would take motors home at night and cook them, so the next day that they'd be ready for us to try to use in the service stations. But after 72, that took a lot of energy out of a lot of people. So that's when I started taking over the company. My dad became president, then I became president, and then Rick Rose followed me as president. And it's a great succession. This is an interesting piece. Yeah. And this was made by Tidewater Oil Company to sell Vidal rust proofing. And we did our first demonstration on a truck bed with this little thing. It took forever. And I don't think we've ever used it again, but it got us in the business because we got the account.
So you use this to apply coatings on a truck bed?
Yeah, that's the way we started selling the rust proofing.
Great.
I mean, staying with Vidal here, what do we got?
Well,
this old box?
Back in the old days, Vidal supplied the oil for Admiral Byrd for his expeditions. Oh, wow. And supposedly, this was made to hold 2 5-gallon cans, and this is the way they shipped the oil in these wooden containers.
And one thing I can't help but notice, but as we're going around, and I know we missed a few, but like your mobile gas trucks.
Mobile, Conoco, everybody makes them.
That's just from you, and obviously these, I'm sure, from just being in the business as long as you have, and the different...
It's all advertising.
Advertisements from some of the oil companies PSC has worked with over the years took up a great deal of Ron's collection. He showed us around his garage that held some larger signage that really impressed us.
As we transitioned from a delivery service and gas station to a distributor of motor oils and industrial lubricants, we began making lifelong connections with many of these companies.
Like many of these lubricant brands, Ron remains an integral asset of PSC, being a significant part of our transition into e-commerce.
The industry has changed a lot since Ron's earliest days, but as the pioneer of online petroleum sales, we are continually doing our best to leave our mark in petroleum history.
Well, I think you've already hit on what the next thing is going to be for Petroleum Service Company. As I look at the way we ship with our e-commerce, you got to put natural gas through a pipeline, but you can ship drums and cases every day out of here by FedEx and UPS and all the other carriers that come in and out of Petroleum Service Company. Yeah, it's a changing industry. We got to stay with it. If your business doesn't change, you go out of business. So you just got to keep current.